Hi, I'm Alex Von David, and you're here with Anime Impulse. Every time I do an okay job on something, I'll get offered another job. I'm not really employed by anyone, but Bang Zoom has been the place that's I've been working at and who's been giving me work pretty sort of consistently for the last, I don't know, since I started 13, 14 years ago. I guess it's affected my life probably most significantly in that every now and then I'll find out that a fan has really been affected by something I worked on, and they'll reach out to me on Twitter or through one of the voice actors, and then I'll hear the story of, you know, that it really meant a lot to them. In one case, one fan actually spoke to me and said it saved their life. Seeing or hearing about those kinds of things really affects me because it makes me understand that what I'm doing isn't just making a dub, it's making something that will hopefully entertain or enlighten someone. That's how pretty much it's affected my life. So dubbing the traditional way, I prefer more than doing like what happened with Durarara Season 2, which was what Aniplex was calling a broadcast dub, where Crunchyroll would air the episode pretty much 24 hours after it aired in Japan, I believe, and then our episode, the dubbed episode, I should say, would air like a few days later. That was rough just because of the turnaround time, because I like to write or adapt the shows and projects that I also direct. I was constantly in a state of, okay, writing, recording.
Everyone in the assault team's working their butts off to clear the dungeon. Please stop!
And the writing stuff, it takes me about 4 days to do. And on Durarara Season 2, that time was cut in half sometimes. So there were a lot of sleepless nights that blended into days that, you know, carried over into the recording sessions just because of the time constraint. So I did not like the experience. I would much rather prefer to have the whole show ahead of time, watch the whole show so that I know and understand what the character arcs are, what the arcs of the storyline are, what the theme of the story is. Because all of that stuff, the original writers had those things already in mind when they started work on the show. And that's how they got the characters to do what they do and say what they say and get to a place where all of a sudden, here's the point of the story. We need that too when we're working on dubs.
As of this moment, Honoji Academy and I are putting an end to your reign. What?
The project that was hardest to keep quiet about was Konosuba. After we had finished recording it, everybody thought that Crunchyroll was going to announce the dub at that year's SakuraCon, and that didn't happen. And they thought Crunchyroll was going to announce it at that year's Anime Expo, and that didn't happen. And then everybody thought, oh, well, maybe Crunchyroll Expo, that's when they're gonna announce it. Nope. And it wasn't until like almost a year after we finished working on the first season of Konosuba that Crunchyroll said, hey, the dub's gonna come out on the site. And so that was a tough one for me to not talk about, just because I was such a fan of the show. I'm sure all of the voice actors had a hard time keeping a lid on it too, because they were all really excited about our work and how it had come out. I asked Bang Zoom if we could screen the first like 5 or 6 episodes for everybody one night, and so they screened the mix check master, or the mix check videos for us. That just got everybody more excited. I think that kind of hurt. The other thing is something that I recorded before Konosuba that still has not been announced, and I have no idea when it will be. I can't even say what it's about, or I can't even hint at it because it would give it away probably. The strangest voice direction I've ever given an actor is something I continue giving actors, and it usually involves emphasizing the word butt, and I sometimes say, stretch the butt out. And every now and then, someone will respond with some kind of snarky answer or something like that. That's usually the strangest direction, although I have a feeling if you ask any of the actors I worked with the same question, what's the strangest direction Alex has ever given you? I'm sure you'd come up. I'm sure they'd be able to fill a sheet of paper front and back with some of the stupid things I've asked or said. My preference between adapting a dub and directing a dub. I kind of need to do the adaptation of it just so that it's like my homework. It helps me figure out who the characters are, what the story is, how everything sounds in English. It's all me just in my head working on those things and hoping that whoever gets cast will be able to understand it. The writing's tough. I don't like it because it's a lot of days of just me sitting alone working on how to maintain the phrasing for a character, like say Aqua. How she phrases things in Konosuba is much different than Darkness.
Sick of working a part-time job! The boss yells at me if I don't sell all the croquettes! I promise I won't slack off! I'll be a good party member!
How to keep that consistent over the course of, 10 episodes in an OVA with lip flaps in the way and all that kind of stuff. It can be very frustrating, but it's always work I'm doing alone. So I'd say I'd have to prefer the directing just because I get to be around people again and I get to hear how the ideas that I had for certain lines, how they play. The directing stuff is also, it's much faster paced than the writing is because the sync's already taken care of. Even in the directing phase, I still find out little things to change with the lines here and there. Sometimes performances, something that was playing a certain way in my head, an actor will come in and they'll play a line a totally different way that still works, it still imparts the same intention.
In a way, the game hasn't ended for me yet.
And it's kind of like a moment of, wow, I never thought of that, let's go with that. So I would have to say my favorite, directing. The biggest misconception the fans have about localization, dubbing, etc. I'd say the biggest misconception is that we're trying to somehow replace the Japanese performances and the Japanese voice actors with our work. I mean, technically, yeah, that's what we're doing, but we're not trying to obliterate it from the record. We're not trying to top it, at least I'm not. And when we're recording a show, the only thing that I'm trying to lead everybody to is just to make something that carries the same intention as the Japanese, but just in our language. The relevancy of dubs is that there's some people who don't understand Japanese, they don't like reading subtitles, and the dub is there for them so they can enjoy the story and the characters more easily. It's not hard to read subtitles, but some people are dyslexic, so what about them? Some people can't see very well. I don't know. What's the point of dubs? It's a marketing tool, but it's not a contest. And yeah, we're not trying to replace anything or top anything. We're just trying to make something that carries the same intention, and hopefully you enjoy it in English as the same way that a Japanese fan would enjoy it in Japan. They're both there for you. They're always going to be there for you. So it's like arguing which is better, chocolate ice cream or strawberry ice cream. Take your pick. Don't be an asshole. The riskiest line I've worked into a script but still made the final cut. So when I'm adapting anime, I'm not trying to change the intention. So, because it's not about me. Working on the show is me trying to bring out the essence and intention of the story and the characters and what they're saying and why they're saying it. And hopefully in the studio we can, working with the voice actor, we can work in a way that you know why a character says something or why they react a certain way to something. So as far as risky lines go, again, it's not about me and showing how clever I am. It's all about bringing out the intention. But when I was adapting Kill the Kill and we got to the episodes where Takarada shows up, his character, it was so specific in his attitude and in the way he was drawn. I didn't know who was going to be cast yet at that point, but I wrote a little bit. I think we were still recording a few earlier episodes at the time, so I spoke with Hiroe Tsukamoto, the producer from Aniplex, who was supervising the dub, and I let her know what I was going to do. I showed her the script, And she looked at it and she said, well, I don't understand what he's saying, but if you say the intention is still there, then okay. And I said, great, so now we gotta find somebody who can do this. And there's only one person I trust, and that's Ben Diskett. Luckily, Ben knew exactly what to do with the voice and the character. It was one of the easier characters to record on Kill la Kill, believe it or not. No doubt due to Ben's talents. I think most fans liked how Takarada came out, and they got where he was coming from with our strange, slangy adaptation and Ben's crazy performance.
Y'all might think you the man up in Kobe and Kyoto, but this is Osaka G. So unless you want my foot up your ass, get to stick.
The one big actor reaction to their characters, something that happens to their character that sticks in my mind, that will always stick in my mind, is Carrie Kieran's reaction to Mommy's, to what happens to Mommy in Madoka Magica, or Magica, I should say, as Aniplex wants us to say it. Hiroe Tsukamoto, again, our producer and supervisor on the dub from Aniplex, she told me not to tell Carrie that was going to happen to her in episode 3. The reason was that Hiroe wanted the actress to go through the same experience as the Japanese voice actors did. And Mommy's voice actress, Mommy Seiyu, was not told ahead of time what was going to happen to her character in episode 3. And I said, well, I don't see how it's going to help Carrie, but if that's what you want, okay. So we all kept our mouths shut about what's going to happen to Mommy. When we got to the last couple of lines, we previewed the line, and then we recorded it, and after we recorded the line, I asked the engineer to just keep rolling and let the scene play out. And so Carrie saw what happened to Mommy, and she just was like, her mouth got really big, and so did her eyes. And then she just kind of like looked over, there's a window separating us. She looked over at me and she's like, oh my God, I'm dead? Spoiler. I was just sitting there going, like, shrugging. Yeah, that's it. I mean, you have more lines later on in the show, but yeah, this session's over for today. And she was just kind of shrieked, and then she came in and was just kind of really kind of juiced about it. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe it, this, that. And I apologized, of course, for not telling her, and then told her why Hiroe wanted it done that way. That's the one thing that really sticks out in my mind. I used to have hobbies. Again, the adaptation takes about 4 days for one episode. And then as far as directing goes, directing sessions, usually last from like 9 or 10 in the morning until like 7 or 8 at night. No, not really. I don't have any hobbies. I barely see my friends outside of the industry, especially when I'm adapting scripts. I'm surprised I had time to come down here to do this. But yeah, Rachel was like insistent, and I could not push it off any further because I didn't want to upset her. I guess the only hobby I have left is collecting Blu-rays of old movies that are coming out, putting them in a stack on the floor in front of my TV to watch at some point. Don't know when that's going to be though. And then the other, I guess, hobby I have is I collect these specific figures from the shows that I work on. This is a scene on Figma, and they're articulated and stuff, and they come with little stands and sometimes cool little things, additional like special edition parts or whatever. So, I mean, I'll collect these Figmas and ask the voice actors to sign them next time I work with them or see them. Yes, my Xenon is signed by Michelle, and she wrote a cute little note on it too. But other than that, no hobbies. I'm a loser. How do I start a job? I try and do as much research as I can with whatever materials are available. If the show's around, I'll watch the show. Like for Sword Art Season 3, I started reading the books, read as far as they had published, and then started work on the adaptation. Whenever the translation would trip me up, I would go to the book, and the book would usually help explain what the idea behind the translation was a little more clearly for me. Of course, edits had to be made, so some scenes and some moments had to be cut out of the book to just keep the pace going for the show. But sometimes a character will say a line that without the context of this one chunk of story in the book, the line doesn't quite make sense. So sometimes I would incorporate somehow the idea of this, whatever happened in the story that you didn't see in the anime, sometimes I'd incorporate that into the line or the lines. Sometimes you don't have manga, you don't have anything, like with Kill la Kill, it was an original story. Like with Kill la Kill, the video game, that was also an original story. There's nothing out there that I could use to help me. And when I started work on Kill la Kill, I think only 10 episodes had aired in Japan at the time, so I didn't even know where the story was going. I knew that Satsuki was special, but that's all I could tell Carrie. I couldn't tell her what her long game is. I could only tell her that she had to have a long game just because of how the character was set up. I just have to trust my instinct and hope that the translation is good, because if it is not, it's going to take us down roads where we shouldn't be going, and the intention of the creators would get lost. I like watching Venture Brothers just because of the comedy and performances are so great in that show. The humor is of my generation, so they're constantly referencing things like Raiders of the Lost Ark or stuff that was on TV years and years ago when I was a kid. I used to like watching Walking Dead, but like the comics, it just became the same old thing. People sitting around talking. What does voice acting mean to me? I wouldn't be able to do my job without voice actors. Voice actors have a hell of a job. They cannot communicate with their facial expressions or their body movement or position. Everything has to be communicated through the voice. So I respect them for doing what they do, and I appreciate their patience whenever I ask them to do another take. Thank you for watching Anime Impulse. My name is Alex Von David. You can find me on Twitter at Alex Von David, all lowercase, and hopefully I'll see you around there.